A small city in California made statewide news with the unusual disappearance of Naomi Rivers, a transgendered man, of whom neighbors described to be kind and generous. On February 29th, around 3:30 in the afternoon, police received a call from Sonia Liu, Naomi's coworker, reporting his disappearance. After his uncharacteristically missing work for 3 days straight with no prior notice, she, worried, insisted on going to his house to check on him, but found no evidence of Naomi's presence inside when peering in through the windows. Despite his car parked alongside the curb of the street, she proceeded to call his work phone and heard a ringing from inside, but did not see or hear a single attempt made to answer or hang up on the phone. When she tried knocking on the door, she found it strangely open, and to her shock, also found the entire room in disarray. Naomi Rivers was an attractive young person and a senior in college, who was working part-time in a local bar to save up for reassignment surgery and to pay for his college tuition. He had also hoped to pursue a career as a computer scientist, having secured an internship with Facebook for the following summer.
He was always trying his best to make the best of everything. I'm not sure if that was my son's way of trying not to disappoint us, or for not being the perfect daughter we imagined him to be, but I loved him anyway. He didn't even come out to us until 2 years ago, and his father, well, it took his father some time, but he finally gave in. We even offered to help pay for the reassignment surgery, but he wanted to do things himself. He was so happy to finally feel like himself, a regular man, a person like everybody else.
Naomi was known among his friends for his quirky personality, for being fun and forgiving, and always willing to lend a hand to anyone in need, despite his own personal problems, and being there to listen. Naomi also made sure he never missed any appointments he made, including going to work. His coworkers and boss all agreed that Naomi was a very reliable and very good employee. So when Naomi skipped work for 3 days in a row, both his coworkers and his boss thought it was strange and asked Sonia to go check on him. Little did she know what she would end up finding at his house.
They asked me to go check on him, and I agreed. I was the closest to Naomi. We'd hang out during break and after work because we knew each other from school. We would just talk. I'd been to his house before too, and since I was worried about him, decided to take up the job. But I don't want to intrude first. So I tried calling him to tell him I was coming. Maybe even get an answer on how he's doing. No answer. Just a ring and the voicemail. So I finally went to his house. There were chairs knocked all down to the floor, blood on the carpet. There were broken pieces of glass and bottles everywhere. It was just a hellish mess.
It was obvious to the police that the car had been there for quite a while, and there was no sign of the ignition being started. The gas looked to be full, as though Naomi had just refilled it at the gas station before getting home. Because the neighborhood was full of trees, there was a pile of leaves that were collected alongside the tires, and there seemed to be no attempt made to clean them off.
When police went inside, they found something strange. While the room was a complete mess, there was nothing seemingly valuable that was taken from the house. The TV was there, Naomi's laptops and cameras were there, and his social security number and important private documents were there. Police did, however, find Naomi's phone, or rather phones. Naomi had kept 2 phones for his use, one seemingly for work, the other for personal usage. And on his personal phone, there is an alarmingly large amount of voicemails left for Naomi from the same number. When investigators looked through Naomi's drawers, they found a stack of letters directed to him from an anonymous sender. Inside the various threats read, "One day, you'll get what's coming to you. You need to leave people alone. I hope you disappear." The oldest was dated November 16th, 2016, and was most recent was 3 weeks prior to Naomi's disappearance. When police spoke to Naomi's close friends and families, they said that they didn't know anything about the letters or of anyone that had a grudge against Naomi.
Naomi never told me about the letters or talked about anything that bothered him. He usually kept to himself about this. But even then, it never seemed as though anyone had grudges against him. He was the kind of person that people couldn't help but like. Even when he came out, there was no instance or talk that he received any hate.
Back at Naomi's house, investigators also found strands of short brown hair on Naomi's carpet. But with no hair follicle attached, police were unable to use it for DNA analysis. Naomi also happened to have brown hair, but his was dyed, and his natural hair color was blonde. When scientists tested the hair at the lab, the color of the hair under the microscope revealed uneven and gritty, indicating that it was a natural brown hair. Dyed hair is distinguishable from natural hair as the cortex will show a smooth color throughout the hair, but the hair left on the carpet was of someone else. Hours, police would get a report about a bloodied cleaver by a corner convenience store dumpster from the store manager. Though police were not 100% certain that the cleaver was connected to Naomi's case, they secured the cleaver in a biohazard bag for later investigation. With no leading suspects in the case regarding Naomi's disappearance so far, police took to investigating those closest to Naomi, the family.
Usually in cases regarding disappearances, the first thing they look at are the significant other and family members, especially in cases like Naomi, because large percentage of crimes are committed by family members and the police around the victim.
Hi, I'm Officer Johnson. You're not in trouble or anything. We just need to ask you a couple questions. So, the more you cooperate, the sooner we get out of here. Let's start with your name.
Ryan Herrera.
How old are you, Brian?
I'm 25.
And how did you know Naomi River?
I worked a couple of shifts with him.
Was there anything weird when you two worked together? Anything you noticed that might have been different?
There was this customer that asked for Naomi both on and off shift. He had brownish hair and wore glasses. I think his name was Jonathan.
Did you happen to catch his surname?
No, I don't think so. Oh, but we had a notebook.
Nope.
Yes, it was where the customers would sign in, and if they signed in 5 times, they would get a free meal and a drink.
Back at the forensics lab, scientists decided to test the blood on the cleaver that was found back at the dumpster of the convenience store, a few miles from that of Naomi's house. Tests indicated it was in fact human blood. But whose was it? Because DNA resides in the white blood cells in our blood, and because we inherit half of our DNA from each of our parents, The sample blood from the cleaver could be determined whether or not the blood was possibly Naomi's, testing it against that of his own parents' blood samples. Testing the blood, scientists found that it did indeed belong to that of Naomi. From his parents and friends, that only enticed more worries to what happened to their son and beloved friend. For the police, it meant that possible speculating that Naomi was injured, or perhaps even worse, dead. Police collected handwriting exemplars from both Jonathan and August, without them being told of the intention, as police read off various parts of the letter at varying speeds. However, handwriting analysts concluded that the handwriting between both the threads and their samples were different. There was still one piece of evidence left that was collected, or rather two: Naomi's phones. On his phones, there were a series of old voice messages left for Naomi. There were messages from his family and friends, but one particular number appeared frequently in the history. Though the police could not call the number back, audio could still be played, and much like the letters, they were filled with hostile threats towards Naomi. The messages were taken back to the lab, where voice analyst Hannah Baker transferred and projected the voices into a 3D graphic picture, using time, frequency, and volume. Baker commented that the audio sounded as though it was altered with pitch alter application, but with software, matches could be made based on the percentage of similarities to the voice. When tested on the two subjects at hand, however, matches of less than 17% were made. Police were stumped and were just about at the end of their ropes. Police received a call at around 10:15 a.m. on March 6 about a woman hanging around Naomi's house for about an hour and who has been trying to open the door to the house from Naomi's neighbor across the street. So police made their way immediately over and apprehended Marcia Stone to be brought in for questioning.
She had been at this house for more than 2 hours, peering into the windows and trying to open the door. Neighbors had reported never seeing her before, but completely found her suspicious. Police brought her into questioning, and then she immediately started breaking down. When they asked her what she was doing there, even crossing the police tape, she originally said that she was a friend of the person in the house and had heard the news. She was clearly nervous, and though she didn't stutter, she kept shaking her legs and moving her arms, trying to get out of various times by saying she needed to go to the bathroom or she had an appointment and she had to go. When we wouldn't let her out, she began yelling, crouching on the floor, saying she had to go. We tried to calm her down for a little bit, but then she started changing her attitude toward Naomi. When we asked her how she knew him, she started off saying things like she and I knew each other from school. But then later, changing her story to, I met her through a friend at a bar she works at. She kept referring to Naomi as she rather than he. And then we knew something was not right with the way Mr. Stone was treating him. She admitted she was guilty of murdering Naomi Rivers, and revealed that she was, in fact, Jonathan Roberts' ex-girlfriend. Then she told us the full story.
For the past few months, Marcia Stone has been stalking Naomi Rivers shortly after Naomi and Jonathan began corresponding. In the midst of her and Jonathan's failing relationship, she had accumulated some debt out of careless spending and had been asking to borrow money from Jonathan, who was also at the very brink of losing his job. And it was at this point where Jonathan had become acquaintances with Naomi. After noticing Jonathan was corresponding with another person so frequently, she began to suspect that he was cheating and had gone onto his phone to see who exactly it was, Naomi. While the conversation was relatively clean, She had gotten furious to see that Jonathan had been saying things about her to Naomi. She would later confront him, only to have him break up with her. Now, she was not only stuck with debt, but she also lost her lover. The emotional stress she went through also caused her to slack off with her work, and she eventually got fired. She had written down Naomi's number from Jonathan's phone and began sending him messages, blaming him for stealing her man, her job, and her livelihood, and seducing him into thinking Naomi wasn't attracted to him by playing dress up as a man. She found out where Naomi lived and where he worked at, and continued sending him threats. But when she saw how little it did, she was infuriated and set about murdering him. She managed to get into his house, and when he came home, struck him with a chair and a bottle, managing to knock him unconscious. She then proceeded to drag his body into the bathtub and grab a cleaver from the kitchen, where she would subsequently stab him brutally. After she was done, she didn't want the body to be found, and so chopped his body into pieces and threw the body into the sewers. She then cleaned up the blood in the bathroom and used bleach to cover as much as possible. She wanted to make it seem as though he simply got attacked and disappeared, and partially out of jealousy. Toppled down the furniture, took the cleaver, and left. She quickly disposed of the cleaver by a nearby convenience store, hoping that nobody would find it.
We asked her why she committed such a brutal and awful act, and whether or not she actually thought she would get away with it. The only answer she could give us was that she didn't think too much. All she could think of was killing him out of jealousy and for all the wrongdoings he had committed against her. When we asked why she decided to come back to Naomi's house, she said, "I wanted to delete the messages Jonathan sent to her."
Marcia Stone would be arrested and sentenced to death by legal injection for the murder of Naomi Rivers, for breaking and entering a private property, for destruction of property, and for harassment and stalking. As for Naomi's family and friends, all that was left were broken hearts, tears, and a son that will never return.
I hate that woman with the bottom of my heart. She took away my son, my baby. She took away his future and his friends and his dreams. She did this out of broken reasoning, and my baby had to pay the price for her insanity. I'll never see him again. I don't have the chance to hold him in my arms ever again. I won't be able to see him graduate or be happy or smile like me as he did. She took him away from everybody that loved him because of hatred, because of her evil. My son, I can't ever get him back, and she gets to die so luckily like that. How dare she? How dare she? My son. Give me back my son.
We managed to find the murderer, but there's no happy ending. She committed the vicious crime to a kind person who only wanted to help those around him while trying to live his own life. It was just kidding. Let's restart. We managed to find the murderer, but there's no happy ending. She committed the vicious crime to a kind person who only wanted to help those around him while trying to live his own life. It was a kid that got his future taken away from him just like that. And there's no telling what he could have done. It was just terrible. I don't think I'll ever forget such a tragedy, nor will I see a case like this ever again.